You know, Trump is afraid. He knows he's going to go to jail, which is why he's trying to tell the key witnesses that they shouldn't testify because he knows if they do, there's nothing he can do about it, and there's no way he's going to get away.
Fani Willis is expected to call multiple witnesses as she wraps up her 2020 election interference case and seeks charges against possibly more than a dozen people. What's key to understand this morning? The nature of this case and the potential legal risks for Donald Trump this time around, and how that might be different than his last three indictments because these are state charges in part. CNN's Sarah Murray is live outside the courthouse. Sarah, all this activity that's happening inside, Donald Trump is posting brand new attacks against someone who was one of the witnesses. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, obviously what's going on in the courtroom today, in the courthouse today, is a grand jury presentation, and that's being done under seal. But the grand jury will be beginning to hear this case against Donald Trump and his allies today. As you pointed out, we confirmed that there is one witness who is there to testify today. Our colleagues at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution have spotted two other potential witnesses testifying today. And even though Donald Trump has insisted he did nothing wrong around his efforts to overturn the 2020 election in Georgia, he has been lashing out on his social media platform, including against one of the witnesses who's expected to testify before this grand jury tomorrow, former Georgia Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan. Donald Trump took to his social media account to say he's reading reports that the failed Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, Jeff Duncan, will be testifying before the Fulton County grand jury. Trump goes on to say he shouldn't, and then he goes on to launch a number of other attacks against Duncan. Again, this grand jury presentation is expected to take up to 2 days, although of course we're going to be on high alert for any potential indictment announcements today or tomorrow. And this is a sprawling case. This has been a 2.5-year investigation that was set off when Donald Trump made that phone call to Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger and pressed him to find the votes for Trump to win the state of Georgia. But it's gone on to include the fake elector scheme. It's gone on to include a harassment campaign against election workers, as well as a voting systems breach in rural Coffee County, Georgia. Sarah.
All right, Sarah Murray, thank you for all of that. Appreciate it. John?
And just a reminder, Sarah, these were the election results in Georgia in 2020. This was the margin between the two candidates. Joe Biden won by 11,779 votes. That was the number that Donald Trump called Brad Raffensperger and said, find me more votes than that. This trial is taking place, or this grand jury, these hearings are taking place in Fulton County. That is where Atlanta is. And very briefly, Sarah Murray mentioned Coffee County. That's all the way down here in the southern part of the state. You can see Donald Trump won that with nearly 70% of the vote. There's just over 15,000 voters in that county. But it was in that county there now appears to be these evidence, text messages and emails between Trump campaign officials and officials in this county talking about seizing and cracking open the voting machines there.
Which is illegal to do and considered election tampering. Wow, Trump and his team are so stupid. They thought they could commit all these crimes and then get themselves back into power and wouldn't have to worry about the crimes that they committed.
All right, with us now to talk about all this is CNN contributor John Dean, former Nixon White House counsel. John, if we can, I want to start in Fulton County, where former Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan is going to testify tomorrow. And we just saw that social media post from Donald Trump. I'll read you the beginning again. I'm reading reports that failed former Lieutenant Governor of Georgia Jeff Duncan will be testifying before the Fulton County grand jury. He shouldn't. He then goes on to say, I barely know him, but he was, right from the beginning of this witch hunt, a nasty disaster for those looking into the election fraud that took place in Georgia, et cetera, et cetera. You have the potential defendant in here talking about a witness testifying, saying he shouldn't. What are the potential problems there, John?
Well, it's not very smart. It's witness tampering pretty blatantly. He's trying to send a message to Duncan to withhold or whatever. Trump is he just doesn't seem to be able to help himself. He's under protective orders elsewhere in New York and now in D.C. He knows better, but he just doesn't seem to be able to behave. And I don't know what a judge will do in Georgia when this actually, if the indictment comes down and he finds himself in front of a judge.
You know, you were talking about this is happening in Georgia right now. In Washington, D.C., right here, John, there is the federal case against Donald Trump where Judge Tanya Chutkan has warned Donald Trump about his social media messages. What role, if any, will these messages directed at Georgia witnesses have maybe in the federal case?
They'll have no effect because the D.C. judge, she has no jurisdiction over what's happening in Georgia, but it will not go unnoticed by her. He has been somewhat restrained in D.C. Apparently yesterday, the only thing I happen to notice is he reposted a picture and a critical remark of the D.C. judge. And whether she'll react to that or not, I don't know. It's not as he's trying to play a game and see how close to the line he can get and how he can send harassment without actually being a harasser, if you will.
Sarah Murray and others are reporting that in Coffee County, Georgia, that Fonnie Willis, the Fulton County DA, has in her possession text messages and emails between Trump campaign officials or people associated with the Trump campaign and officials in this county talking about getting access to the voting machine. These are receipts. What role could these texts and emails play in this trial, John?
It's definitely going to be a big hit to Trump. There's nothing he can do anymore.
Documents always play a big role. They are not impeachable. They say what they say. They can't be cross-examined, and they have a big impact on juries. And when there's jury polling later or juries discuss what influenced them, it's often the documents that have the biggest impact on them because they can, really no credibility issue with a document. A document is a document. So that is a powerful piece of evidence.
All right, John Dean, counselor, always great to see you. Thank you so much for your help today.